Okay, so now we're looking at Junkyard Joe. I do want to show you guys the size in comparison to a DC Deluxe Edition. This is larger than a Deluxe Edition. It's going to match the size of the Rick Remender Deluxe Edition. So these are even more deluxer editions. So this is Junkyard Joe. It is the follow-up in the well, it's different than, so this is Ghost Machine. Geoff Johns hired all his best friends. They started their own company called Ghost Machine with creator-owned properties. The first story was done by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank called Geiger. Post-apocalyptic, loved it. And they tease a character, and there's a little moment of a character named Junkyard Joe. Now this is Junkyard Joe, which takes place in, I guess, the regular world or modern time. So it's done by Geoff Johns, Gary Frank, Brad Anderson, and Rob Lai. So this book is currently on sale for $30 at Organic Price Books, but you can get it for $28 with the code Braveboys. And it tells the story of Junkyard Joe, not to be confused with the Tin Man G.I. Joe from DC Comics. But it starts out with this fun little, almost like Peanuts, Charles Schultz comic strip of Junkyard Joe. And you realize that, hey, maybe it's more than a comic strip, you know? So it's written by a guy named Muddy Davis, and it cuts to Vietnam, and Gary Frank's art is immaculate. So you get to meet these characters, these soldiers in Vietnam. They're a little scared. There's some new recruits, and it is violent. It is war. It is terrible. And they are getting attacked from all sides. They don't know what's going to happen. And then a guy catches a grenade, and all his skin blows off. And they're like, what the hell? And he grabs a gun, and he starts fighting. And, you know, at first they're terrified of the robot, but then he saves them. And, you know, they grow to respect him. He becomes part of the company, and, you know, they have a lot of respect for Junkyard Joe. And as it goes on, I mean, this war is violent. It's unwinnable. It's a war we should never have been in. And his whole unit gets killed, and Junkyard Joe walks off and just fires on all of the Vietnamese soldiers, sees a child, and he shuts down. So it cuts to the president going like, what's going on? And he just gave up. So now one of the people that Junkyard Joe saved woke up, and he was doodling an image of the robot, and they told him, you know, it was all in his head. It was all imaginary. And now it is modern time. Now it is today. So it cuts to an older man who has lost his wife. He's a veteran, and it was that soldier, Muddy, who wrote the strip of Junkyard Joe. And he meets a family that moves across the street. They've lost their mom. He's lost his wife. So there's a lot of loss. And you find out that he wrote one of the most popular comic strips, Junkyard Joe, and he hasn't written it. He retired after his wife died. So what happens one night, there's a knock on the door. He opens it up, and it's Junkyard Joe. It's his creation, the thing he thought was made up in his head, reporting for duty. So I don't want to spoil anything else. I will flip through a little bit and show the art, but these people come after Junkyard Joe. The kids get involved, and it's pretty intense. I want to show one panel that I love, though. Let me flip forward a little bit. So you get to see other comic strips in here. So you get to see Gary Frank do a Peanut strip, and you get to see him do a Calvin and Hobbes, which is my favorite. So the old man, Muddy, and Junkyard Joe bond. The kids are trying to fit in school, and one of them's an artist too, so you know she's going to get mentored by Muddy. And the dad doesn't know how to be a dad after the loss of his wife, so there's a lot going on. But at its core, it's a story of two soldiers who don't know how to exist after loss, after the war. And Junkyard Joe clearly has PTSD as much as a robot can. So here you get to see a strip of the Peanuts drawn by Gary Frank, and then you get to see a strip of Calvin and Hobbes drawn by Gary Frank, and then you get to see Junkyard Joe drawn by Gary Frank. So it's an excellent book. I don't want to show you guys anything else, but this is one of my favorite reads of the year. I'm not sure if this will come out before or after my top 10 reads of the year, but this book will definitely be on it. It was everything I loved about Geiger and then some, so you have to check it out. Everyone keep reading and stay brave.